Okay, let's go ahead and take questions for Coach. Who's first? Go ahead, Steve.
Jerod, good afternoon. Was wondering what you remember, not necessarily about the game last year in Vegas against Cal, but just the atmosphere going into it, the atmosphere and fear for all of us in the hours and days after. What stands out for you in your memory about that?
Yeah, certainly an odd time, and we were right at the early stages of the whole kind of week there of just uncertainty, certainly uncomfortable, and while we were focused on the game, obviously there were so many other questions going on, and most times in our lives it's you get information day by day or week by week. You're getting information minute by minute and having to act, and learn and respond accordingly. So it's really an odd time, an uncomfortable time. And, even outside the game, this was a year ago now, and it's been a wild year since that time.
Okay, thank you.
We'll go next to Jackson Moore. Go ahead, Jackson.
Coach, could you just describe what the last few days have been like and how you attempted to regroup the team since we saw you last?
Yeah, we've really worked. The bottom line is we've talked to the team about getting back to just working and growing and trying to develop and grow. This year has been so challenging because of lack of continuity, and who's playing, who's not playing, who's in, who's out. And while I really feel like we have so many great pieces in and among the program, if you look at our starting five with at the beginning of the year with Bryce and Dejan, Zaire and Spencer and Oscar, just in the conference season, I think we're over 30 individual games that those guys have missed. They've only been together for a few of those games, maybe even a couple of those games. And so because of that, it's not like they were all in or out at the same time. Putting the pieces together has been challenging. So the theme for this week was just, let's get back and work. And we don't know exactly what combinations are going to be out there, how it's going to look once we get out there Wednesday. But what we can do is, again, work and prepare the best we possibly can. And the guys, it's been some really tough physical practices, and I think the guys have actually enjoyed it.
Go ahead, Peter.
First, any update on Oscar's availability as well as whether Dejan and Bryce might be in tomorrow?
Yeah, Oscar is going to be, I said, after the USC game, and we're still at the same spot that the entire team is kind of beat up right now. Oscar's day to day. We're going to practice here in an hour, so we'll see what he can do today. But I don't know with any certainty. But he wants to play. I think it's within the realm of possibility, but at this point it's day to day with him. And I think how he practices today will be important for that. Bryce and Dejan will be available, and we'll again just kind of see how everything goes today and with practice. But I'm anticipating them being out there.
And then also, you sort of talked a little bit about how this year has been so turbulent and challenging. Do you feel like there are any players in particular that have stepped up into leadership roles, or sort of how has that looked, especially with guys being in and out throughout the year, trying to keep that cohesion?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's not a 10-second answer. There's been a lot of different players, different situations where guys have stepped up, certainly in leadership roles. One that jumps to mind, maybe that we wouldn't think of, or I didn't think of, or the public may not have thought of, in a leadership role is Spencer. And I think he's been really stable. I think he has missed one game that I held him out because of injury, but he's been available. He's been an extremely hard worker. He's continued to develop. And I think he has a ton of respect from guys on the team. So in a year that's been very turbulent and unstable, I think Spencer has provided a ton of stability. He's certainly not the only example. We have, again, a variety of guys at different times throughout the year that have stepped up in a variety of ways. But I bring him up more because of his consistency with his approach and his attitude. He's been fantastic.
Thank you.
Troy, you're up next.
Hey, Coach, what were your big takeaways from the first two meetings against the California Golden Bears and facing a team for a third time in a relatively short amount of time? How does that affect the dynamic potentially of what we could potentially see this time around?
Yeah, well, we have a great deal of respect for Cal. You know, their games, they've had so many close games. They've really kept their culture intact. They're playing hard. They're competing with all the games this year and have had some, you know, big time wins. The Colorado win recently was awfully impressive. We understand Bradley's, you know, a big time scorer, but they have a lot of potent weapons. 41% of their shots are 3-point attempts. They have a bunch of guys that we would label as very good shooters. So we need to execute the game plan. We need to try and get the ball inside and attack the basket. And obviously they're going to try and stop us from doing that. So our game planning, I think, is really important in this game. I do think the fact that we've played them twice in a, you know, again, like you mentioned, a short amount of time ago does play into it. So it's a game where both teams will be very familiar. Both teams are going to understand the game plan, and the ability to execute it is going to be crucial.
We'll go back to Steve. Steve, you're on mute.
Jerod, I know your focus is Cal and trying to win 4 games in Vegas, but you also got to have perspective on the rest of basketball. And what I'm going a roundabout way of saying is, if you got an NIT bid, would you accept it? Have you made that determination yet?
Yeah, we're working with the administration. You know, I think there's a few things we'd have to look at, but the reality is my quick answer is yes. If we were invited to any national tournament, you know, obviously our goal is to make the NCAA tournament. But my attitude is a national tournament, an invitational tournament is something that I personally would welcome.
Great, thank you.
All right, anyone have a follow-up? And we'll let Coach go. Peter, gotcha.
What would be your answer if you were sort of in the room for Selection Sunday and you were in that discussion of whether this team deserves to be in the NCAA tournament, or what do you think might need to be done over these coming days to deserve a bid for that?
Yeah, I don't know the details. Obviously, lots of wins would help. You know, the one thing when you look at our resume, it's probably, when you look at holistically, it's probably unlike anybody else, partly just because of the situation we were in, you know, being away from Maples, away from home, away from Stanford for so long. And then also the injuries. Again, I've already mentioned, I think just their original starters for the season, you know, who we played pretty well against Alabama that first game of the year with these 5 guys as starters. And then in the conference season, again, we're over 30 games, individual games that those guys have missed. And so the instability has been challenging, and we haven't had a cohesive group. I think one of the questions is, would we have that going in the NCAA tournament? And I'm hopeful, and I'm thinking the answer would be yes, but the reality is we are going to need to take care of business on the court. But I do think we have an interesting story. I think we've proven that we can be a heck of a team. I also think we've had a lot of adversity and a lot of challenges. And while we haven't responded well every single time, I think there have been a number of times, and more than not, that we have responded pretty well and shown that we are very, very capable.
Thank you.
Coach, thanks for spending a few minutes with us. Good luck with the 4 deep run in Vegas.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.